a disturbing confession drops. A witness says he was forced to help disappear a body deep inside an unregistered dam after a covert operation went wrong, and the recording has leaked. In the next minutes, we break down what Witness D claims happened, why he feared coming forward, and the single detail in his testimony that investigators say could change everything. It starts with a question that still haunts him. Why was he the one they called at midnight? Witness D says the phone rang once, sharply, like someone who didn't want to risk waking the wrong ears. On the line, a senior officer told him to get dressed, avoid headlights, and be at a remote service station within 15 minutes. No explanation, no hesitation allowed. He remembers the chill in his chest as he realized this wasn't a normal assignment. The silence on that call felt heavy, like something was already being hidden before he even arrived. He describes pulling into a gravel lot that wasn't listed on any operational map, the kind of place used by people who don't want to be traced. A white van sat there with its engine running, but the plates had been removed, leaving only screw holes on the frame. No uniforms, no documentation, no sign-in procedure. Just two men wearing plain gloves and avoiding eye contact. Witness D remembers thinking the whole scene felt designed to erase itself the moment they drove away. He stepped closer, aware that whatever was inside, that van wasn't meant to be questioned. He says one of the men opened the van door just enough for him to see the outline inside. A long, wrapped tarp pulled tight at the ends, weighted in the middle as though gravity was fighting to reveal its shape. He didn't see a face. He didn't need to. The smell of damp fabric, the metallic hint in the air, and the strained posture of the men told him everything except the one detail no one dared to confirm. In that brief moment, he understood he was being pulled into something he could never unsee. He recalls the exact moment the atmosphere shifted. The commander stepped out of the shadows, calm at first, speaking like the world was still under control. But when Witness D hesitated for even a second, that calm turned sharp, almost surgical. The man's voice dropped, not loud, but cold enough to crush any thought of refusing. "You're here to assist. Nothing more," he reportedly said. No justification, no context. Just an instruction delivered with the confidence of someone who knew questions were useless. Witness D realized then that this wasn't a task, it was an order. He says the route made no sense. They ignored every direct road, taking inconsistent turns as though trying to shake off a tail no one claimed existed. Twice, the commander redirected them at the last second, forcing abrupt detours that made the van tilt on loose gravel. Even the GPS, which normally barked instructions, was muted, flipped face down on the dashboard. Outside, fields stretched into darkness, swallowing any sense of direction. Witness D felt the tension in the front seats, the unspoken awareness that every mile they traveled was meant to disappear behind them. At the water's edge, he says the commander finally spoke again, pointing toward the dam's black surface. The night was windless, the water eerily still, as if waiting. One of the men slid the heavy tarp toward the door while the other gripped Witness D's shoulder, reminding him he wasn't there by choice. He felt his body freeze, not from fear alone but from the sudden clarity of what was being demanded. The weight of the bag dragged grooves into the mud, and the water rippled in slow, widening circles as it sank from sight. Nobody talked. Not the commander. Not the men in the back. Not even Witness D, who says his pulse was so loud he could barely hear the road. The van moved faster on the return trip, as if everyone was desperate to outrun the moment they just buried in the water. Every time he looked up, the rearview mirror showed only the commander's eyes, steady, unreadable, and unblinking. The silence wasn't awkward, it was deliberate, the kind that warns you that language itself has become dangerous. He claims the threat came casually, almost like a reminder, as they approached the outskirts of the city. The commander didn't raise his voice or lean forward. He simply turned his head slightly and said, "If you talk, you're next." No emphasis. No anger. Just a statement delivered with the same neutrality as a weather report. Witness D says that sentence locked him into years of quiet obedience, shaping every decision he made afterward. It was less a threat and more a prophecy he believed would be carried out without hesitation. There's a moment he says he can't forget. A news report about an unidentified body recovered miles from where he thought the dam was. It wasn't the same case, but something about the scene, the taped-off shoreline, The investigators kneeling by the water snapped open a memory he'd spent years forcing down. He realized he'd been carrying a story that didn't belong to him alone. That night, he sat alone in his small apartment replaying every detail of that midnight order, and the silence that followed began to feel heavier than the act itself. When he finally approached investigators, they didn't start by asking for motives. They asked for his timeline, and that's where their eyebrows reportedly lifted. His account had two unexplained gaps, one during the drive, another just after the dam incident. They weren't large gaps, but precise enough to raise questions about what he might have seen or been told to forget. Investigators mentioned that inconsistencies often hint at either suppressed memory or controlled narrative. Witness D felt pressure tightening around him, knowing every second he couldn't account for would soon be dissected. Weeks later, a team went back to the dam he'd identified, a place surrounded by reeds tall enough to swallow sound. Witness D says he stood several meters back while divers entered the water. The air smelled of algae and damp metal, and each ripple seemed to echo the night he'd last been there. When the divers surfaced with debris but no confirmed evidence, the tension deepened rather than eased. He watched the commander's imagined shadow in his mind, still standing at the shoreline, still demanding obedience. The water offered no clear answers. Investigators asked for the operational logs from the night of the incident, but what they received instead was a thin file with a single-line entry: unscheduled field movement. No timestamp, no route, no personnel listed. Witness D recognized immediately that this wasn't an administrative oversight, it was a void, and a deliberate one. He remembered the muted GPS, the van with stripped plates, the commander's refusal to explain anything. Every missing detail in the file matched something he'd been ordered not to question. That blank space became a spotlight on the entire operation. Then came the twist he didn't expect. Investigators informed him someone else had come forward, claiming to have seen part of the operation from a distance. They didn't reveal a name, only that this person described a van arriving near the dam at roughly the same late hour. Witness D felt a jolt of fear mixed with relief. If someone else had noticed them, then the night hadn't been as invisible as the commander wanted. The idea that another pair of eyes had been watching added a new layer of tension to every detail he remembered. Once news of the inquiry reached the commander, a formal counterstatement appeared. He dismissed Witness D's account as fabricated, insisting that no off-record operation had occurred that night. He framed himself as a victim of a disgruntled subordinate seeking attention. Witness D read the statement and felt the old pressure return, the same cold certainty that questioning authority had consequences. The commander's tone in the document echoed the same controlled calm he remembered at the dam, a calm that suggested he was confident no one could contradict him publicly. Forensic specialists analyzed debris recovered from the dam. Scraps of tarp, fragments of rope, and traces of sediment inconsistent with surface runoff. The findings didn't confirm Witness D's story, but they didn't dismiss it either. Instead, they opened new uncertainties. Certain elements suggested human interference, others pointed to natural degradation. As reports circulated among investigators, Witness D realized the situation had shifted into a gray zone where nothing would be simple. The dam, once a silent dumping ground, had now become a puzzle with pieces that refused to fit neatly together. Before moving forward, investigators required Witness D to undergo a psychological assessment, something he hadn't anticipated. The evaluator asked him to recount the night minute by minute, pausing whenever his breathing changed or his voice dropped. He found himself revisiting sensations he'd tried to bury: the weight of the tarp, the sound of mud under his boots, the commander's sharp tone. The assessment revealed tremors in his responses, indications of long-suppressed stress. He walked out feeling exposed, as if his mind had been turned inside out for strangers to read. A rumor had been circulating for years about a hidden unit operating outside official channels. Witness D says he had only glimpsed fragments: a van arriving at unregistered sites, orders bypassing paperwork, and whispered conversations about missions no one could verify. Now, investigators were asking questions that hinted the unit might actually exist. He felt a mix of disbelief and dread. What he had thought was isolated chaos might be part of a systematic shadow network. Every detail he had long dismissed suddenly carried weight, making him wonder how many other nights had unfolded in silence like this one. The audio clip leaked online, short but chilling. Witness D's voice recounting the night, the van, the dam, the silence. It played repeatedly in investigative offices, forcing everyone to confront the story. Background noises, a faint shuffle of feet, the hesitation in his voice, lent credibility that words on a page couldn't capture. Witness D listened to it himself, recognizing the tone of fear and obedience he had lived with for years. The clip had changed the dynamics of the investigation, drawing attention from multiple parties and amplifying the questions that no one from the midnight call to the leaked audio. Witness D's narrative exposes layers of secrecy, coercion, and hidden operations. Every scene, every silence, and every gap adds complexity to the story. Investigators are still piecing together what actually happened, while rumors of unrecorded units and conflicting testimonies linger. For viewers, the story serves as a reminder that behind every shocking claim lies a web of uncertainty. Next, we will explore how multiple eyewitness accounts and digital evidence interact to create the bigger picture in high-profile investigations. Witness D leaves the scene of the investigation with a weight that hasn't lifted in years. The offices are empty, the files stacked neatly, the audio clip still playing softly on repeat in someone else's room. Outside, the wind brushes against the windows of the building, carrying faint echoes of the night he thought he'd buried. Every step away from the dam, every memory replayed in his mind, feels like both relief and a tether pulling him back. He knows the story is far from over, questions remain, files remain incomplete, and the world has only heard fragments of what actually happened.